I saw this yesterday. It was definitely very eye-opening. And for you, I understand that you were a little bit hesitant at first to actually take on this part, but Darius was the one who kind of helped put you more at ease. For you, what was it about this role that you were little hesitant about?
Oh, that's actually not true. No, I was really eager to take this on from the jump.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think Darius had been meeting with lots of other actors who were hesitant to take on the project for many really sensible reasons. But for whatever reason, I was kind of in a place where I wanted an overwhelming challenge with a first-time director on no budget and with no time to shoot it because I just wanted to throw myself into the deep end of indie filmmaking again after having done some bigger studio films. Um, yeah, the script blew me away. I loved it. Um, and then when he told me that the drumming will be for real, I was like, wow, that's incredible. So that'll be like most of a year learning how to play the drums. He said, yes. And I said, well, what about sign language? Maybe I should learn that too. And he said, great idea. Yeah, rather than just learning certain signs, you should be able to improvise in ASL. So I spent the 7 months learning the drums in American Sign Language, and I wouldn't say I was hesitant. I'd say I was scared. It was scary, but because it was such a challenge. But that challenge was ultimately very enriching, for the movie and also for me as a human being. So it was a privilege to be mentored by drum teachers and people in the deaf community you know, to be able to bring Ruben to life.
Mhm. You mentioned that you learned sign language and to play the drums, but you also physically kind of changed your body too. Didn't you lose some weight for this role as well, just to kind of get more into the character?
Yeah, so Ruben has a history of addiction, and he's someone who's kind of quite disciplined and controlled in many aspects of his life. It's that kind of desire for control or that fear of losing control that kind of keeps him going, which is why losing his hearing is so scary for him, and that triggers his old addiction patterns. So we wanted to kind of put across this idea of somebody who is incredibly disciplined down to the details of what they eat, when they exercise, you know. And so he has this kind of very kind of lean muscularity that I think also comes from playing the drums so much every day. It's a highly athletic instrument to play. I remember, I can speak from experience of sweating 4 hours a day, in a studio in Brooklyn. So it kind of was another piece of the puzzle, as was, for example, the blonde hair. This idea of kind of um, decorating himself with tattoos and bleached hair to kind of create a persona or an identity of who he was. But by the end of the film, of course, so much of that is stripped away. His idea of who he thought he is, his idea of his purpose shifts, and he comes back to almost a deeper part of himself.
Lastly, you said, of course, this role was challenging, which it sounds like it was for the prep. Compared to some of the other characters and roles you've done, how does this compare to challenging for you?
Hopefully every scene, every role is challenging. You know, uh, I've never done a film where I've left going, "Oh yeah, great, I've nailed it." I don't think any artist walks away from writing a novel or a painting saying, "Yeah, that was perfect." I think ideally everything feels like a rehearsal where you slightly failed
Mm.
but learned a lot. Ideally that's the way it feels, and I think that's how it feels with this. And I hope in a way it continues to feel like that. I hope it continues to feel like I'm pushed in new directions. So in that sense, yeah, this was the most challenging role that I've done to date, and I hope that going forwards, I'll continue to be challenged.
For
Mhm.
you, what was it about this role that made you want to take it on?
I think the film explores themes so delicately and with such nuance, and themes that had no experience with, or just hadn't was quite ignorant to. So, like deaf culture, like addiction, like um, the genre of industrial heavy metal, and so it handled all these themes so beautifully. I was like, God, I've just got to try and be a part of this. Not really thinking that I'm going to have to be in it and perform live, but just wanted to be a part of it.
Okay, so we have to talk about that because I was reading about the prep for this movie, And I mean, it was a lot of work for you and Riz to get into this character. I understand you kind of really had to immerse yourself in the music and, as you mentioned, perform live, learn the guitar. Talk to us about that process for you.
Yeah, more so Riz because he learned ASL as well, and then learned this just amazing drum piece. But yeah, I mean, luckily I had a lady called Margaret Chardet of the band Pharmacon who I just stole and ripped off her entire being. But she taught me the guitar, taught me how to scream, taught me how to loop, and we wrote the lyrics together, even though you can't tell what I'm saying. So I was really lucky just to have her, really. And then yeah, Riz and I came together in the rehearsal room and just tried to be as succinct as possible while still looking like an authentic band as well.
Speaking of Riz, you know, his performance was just amazing, as was yours. What was it like to work alongside him and really see him become that character?
I mean, he's incredible. We already knew he was an amazing actor, but I think with this role, it's just his embodiment of this character and everything that he learned in order to prepare for the role, and this amazing nuanced emotional performance that he does as well. I mean, it made my job as an actor so easy, just having to react off of him. He was a juggernaut. He was amazing.
And lastly, because I know I have to wrap, Darius, this is of course his baby. What do you admire most about him after working with him?
God, the ability to make just the most mundane conversation so deep that you're suddenly unearthing past trauma that you didn't even realize you had. And then 3 days later, you're on set and he's like, remember what you told me when we were eating that sandwich about your grandma? We'll use that here. And I'm like, he's just a bit of an emotional wizard in that way.
Congratulations on this film. I watched it yesterday, and it was so good. For you, I know you'd been working on this for a while, but what was the inspiration for making this?
Well, it's interesting, the inspiration, I think interestingly, as much as I talk about sound, and that was a big part of it, and I definitely felt this kind of sound perspective, I think it was really the concept of the codependent relationship. My dear friend Derek Cianfrance was making a documentary of this band Jucifer, and we wrote Place Beyond the Pines together, but before we even started writing that, from 13 years ago, we talked about this. And this band was two people, and they traveled, and they had this dynamic, and that really hit me, and it hit me for very personal reasons. And I think I didn't even realize how deep and how personal those reasons were until years into writing.
You mentioned sound. I know I was reading that, of course, sound was obviously, you know, so important to get it right for this film, with the emotion and whatnot. So what was it like for you when you went back and saw the film for the first time? Do you feel like you achieved what you had set out to do?
So the premiere was fascinating, and because it was a huge theater in Toronto, and we had a large deaf audience at the screening, and it was just an amazing thing to see the way that people emotionally responded to this. And one person actually had a seizure and had to be brought out because of the experience. And it's the kind of thing that you might pull as a publicity stunt, but we didn't, and it was real. And so it was like this intensely visceral experience. And it was unbelievable. I mean, it's to see this movie in a theater is a whole different ballgame, by the way. There's a whole directionality aspect of it that you cannot reproduce in stereo, and it's really a special experience.
It was very eye-opening, I have to say, watching it and learning about the community and whatnot. You did such a great job showcasing that. I have to ask about Riz, because I understand he was actually very hesitant in some ways about doing this role, just not sure if he could, live up to the part. And he said it was you that really kind of made him feel at ease. How did you make him feel at ease, do you feel like, and why was he perfect for this?
Well, Riz is, first of all, I mean, anyone who doesn't see Riz's talent, I don't know how you can't. He's just so special as an actor. So there's that. But really, he has a courage he's a seeker, you know, he wants to learn things and experience new things. I really don't want actors to get it right. I want actors to find something. I want actors to make mistakes. I want actors to come and build a foundation that they can play on and explore and find something. I think that's where the great performances come from. I don't think they come from certainty. And so maybe for Riz that helped him understand that was my process, and then he could have that process too, that faith, that ability to enter into process and understand I'm not coming to do this. I'm coming to find out what I'm doing. And, you know, and to build with incredible intensity of intention. Like, I mean, 8 months of learning ASL and learning drums and all the rest of it. So the prep was outstanding. The amount of work he did to earn the ability to then explore. I think that's what people, you know, that's what people have to understand, is that you can't explore if you don't have the foundation.
I understand from talking to Darius that for your particular role, he searched for a while to find someone to play this part, but he really found you to be perfect for this. For you, what does that mean to hear? And did you feel a little bit of pressure?
Well, I didn't feel pressure. I think when I read the script and saw the role, I knew that it was very close to me.
Right.
You know, it was an Iraq war veteran in the original script. I'm a Vietnam War veteran.
Mm-hmm.
The addiction, the loss, all that was so close to me that I knew I had to play the role. So there was no pressure. I just didn't even have to dig that deep, because all this stuff that I've gone through with addiction and coming back from this stupid war that I was involved in, and all this hearing loss that's been in my life with my parents and everybody I grew up with, is so close. I just had to dig in a little bit and just play off of Riz, who was an amazing actor to work with.
Mm-hmm. I want to get to Riz in a second, but, you know, speaking or mentioning what you just talked about, I know you have a personal connection, as you said. So did people go to you on the set for your opinion on things more so, and ask, you know, what you think of this or that, to get your perspective?
On this set that we worked on,
Mm-hmm.
there were times when Darius would ask me if I would always tell Darius, the director, the deaf people have a saying in the community: nothing about us without us. In other words, if you're going to make a movie about us, this probably goes across all cultures, don't do it without one of us involved. And so he would ask a lot of deaf people on the set what they thought of this or what they thought of that. And my perspective of having deaf parents, I'll just be very blunt and honest with you about, you know, I don't think deaf people are going to appreciate that, or whatever you're trying to do. But having deaf people involved and having their input was key to respecting the deaf community.
What do people take away from this?
I hope, I hope they realize how precious your hearing is, that you can't take it lightly, and it can be destroyed with all these technological things we have today. But the one thing I want them to know is that the deaf population is not a monolith. There are many different layers of being deaf. Deaf people get addicted to things just like we do. They get tempted. They have foibles. They have problems. They end up making mistakes. There are also a lot of great deaf people. There are doctors, lawyers, but we're all the same, except you just need to learn a little sign language maybe so we can communicate. Deaf people love that, when hearing people take a step. Hey, look, I learned a little bit of this. And they're like, oh boy, somebody to talk to about my culture, you know.
Right. Lastly, you mentioned Riz.
Yeah.
You know, he had to learn sign language for this. I know he learned how to drum. I know he physically lost some weight for this role. What was it like, you know, to work alongside him and see him transform into this character?
Well, it was cool because I didn't know Riz. And when I got to the set, we were made up right next to each other in the trailer, but we did not have, just like the people in the movie, we had no connection personally. It was all very estranged, if you will, didn't know each other. And we got to know each other during the filming. And then after the filming was done, we finally had a drink or had dinner together. But I like, yeah, he's a very smart actor. He kept his distance from me because that's how we were in the movie.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, it was definitely eye-opening for me, and I
Ah,
really enjoyed it. So I really, really thank you, and it was so nice to meet you.
nice to meet you, Elaine. Thank you very much.